I'm going to be showing you how to knit the 2-colour pattern here on the Christmas pudding hat, which is in my all new 20 to make knitted baby hats. So we're going to have a look at reading the chart here, and then I'm just going to talk you through how to work with 2 colours of yarn and to strand your yarn on the wrong side of work, because what we're going to do is look at this 8-stitch pattern repeat. So we have 3 stitches in the brown coloured yarn, and then 2 stitches in the cream coloured yarn, and then another 3 stitches in the brown coloured yarn, and then you go back to the beginning to repeat the pattern round and round. So what's going to happen ultimately is that you're going to end up with 6 stitches in the brown coloured yarn all sitting next to each other. And because with stranded knitting you don't really want to carry the yarn that you're not using, so that's the cream yarn, you don't want to carry it more than 3 or 4 stitches along on the back of your work, because if you do that, the float of yarn, the strand of yarn, will be quite long and you'll be able to sort of catch your fingers on it and that sort of thing. So you want to tuck it into the stitches. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. Now I'm knitting in the round on using the magic loop method of knitting with this long circular needle. The only reason I'm doing it really is because I couldn't find my double pointed needles and I couldn't find my shorter circular needles. So it doesn't matter how you're knitting in the round, working this colour work pattern will be exactly the same for any method of working in the round. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to take our cream coloured yarn and I'm going to tie it onto the working yarn, leave a long enough tail end so that I can weave it in later. Tying it onto the yarn that you're using just helps it to stay in place, and then you can push it right to the top and just grab it with your hand and hold it. So I'm going to do 3 stitches in brown, and then I'm going to drop the brown and I'm going to pick up the cream, and I'm going to make sure that the cream yarn is under the brown. Can you see there? It's underneath the brown. Let's move my book out of the way. So bringing the cream underneath, I'm now going to knit 2 stitches, and then I'm going to drop the cream and the brown comes over the top. We're always going to have the brown yarn on the top, and we're always going to feed the cream yarn from underneath. So we're feeding this from the top. We're going to knit another 3 stitches, and that's the first chart repeat completed. We've got 3 stitches in brown, 2 stitches in cream, 3 stitches in brown. Now what we want to do is to trap the cream yarn in between the brown stitches so we don't end up with a great big long float of yarn. So there's 2 ways that we can do that. We can just wrap the cream over the top of the brown and then just grab it and carry on knitting. That's one way to do it. And then when you look on the other side, on the reverse, you'll see that that strand of yarn is trapped in the stitch there where we crossed over those yarns. Okay, so if you spread your stitches out, you'll make sure that you don't pull this yarn too tight, because if you do, it'll pucker up your stitches and it'll spoil your knitting. So now we're going to knit 2 stitches in cream, and we're bringing the cream in underneath the brown yarn, so underneath, and we're going to knit 2. There we go. And then we're going to take the brown, feed it in from the top, knit 3, and that's 2 pattern repeats that we've made. So now we're going to cross the cream yarn over the brown again to trap it in with the next stitch, and then we can carry on knitting with the brown. Another 3 stitches. Spread your stitches out so you don't pull too tightly, and then feeding in the cream from underneath, we knit 2. Drop the cream, pick up the brown and knit 3. Now the only thing that happens when you do this method of crossing that cream yarn over is that your yarn here starts to twist, so you do have to kind of keep an eye on that and keep on untwisting it. There we go. Can you see now I've untwisted them? Now there is another way that you can carry this yarn along the back of your work. Okay, there is another way to do it. So I'm going to show you that next. So we've knitted the 3 stitches in brown from the last pattern repeat. So we're going to start the next pattern repeat with the 3 brown stitches. You take the cream yarn, you feed it under the brown and just take it over in the opposite direction than you would normally do when you knit a stitch. So over from right to left over the stitch, so it's sitting on the stitch. Go to knit your stitch with the brown, and as you pull your brown yarn through the stitch on the needle, take that cream over as well, and then it traps it in the stitch. We'll do that again. We'll knit 2 in the cream, and then we'll knit 3 in the brown, and then I'll do that again for you. Right, you go put your right hand needle into the stitch on the left hand needle. You take the cream yarn and you pass it over from right to left over the tip of the right hand needle. Grab it with your left hand. Take the brown yarn and just knit the stitch as normal, and as you bring it through, you bring that tip under the cream needle and in under the brown, through the brown stitch, and then take it off, and then it's trapped in the back of the stitch. Can you see there? It's quite clever actually. It's quite a nice, neat way to do it, and you don't have to keep crossing the yarns over. And also it helps to not get these yarns all twisted around each other. They stay separate. So that's a really good method. That's the method that I use. But that's how you trap the yarns in the back of your work. And just make sure that you've got plenty of room, that the stitches spread out nicely and they're not all puckered up. So I'm going to finish that round, and then I'm going to show you what to do on the next round, because the next round is exactly the same, but what you don't want to do is to cross the yarns in the same place. So we knitted 3 stitches and 3 stitches with the yarn crossed in between those, but on the next round we're going to have to either cross the yarn after 2 stitches or cross the yarn after 4 stitches. Otherwise what happens is you get a visible line where you keep swapping the yarn, crossing the yarn, sorry, in the same place. So it's not recommended to do that with colour work knitting. So don't keep swapping the yarn in the same place from row to row. So on this round, this is round 2, we're going to knit the 3 stitches from the chart first of all to finish that pattern repeat that I was working on there. So I've done the 2 stitches in cream, 3 stitches in brown. You can see here where I crossed over the cream yarn on the previous round, so we don't want to do it in the same place. I'm going to knit another stitch so that I've got 4 stitches in brown. Then I'm going to trap my cream yarn into the next stitch, knit another stitch in brown to make 6 stitches, and then feed the cream yarn from underneath and knit 2. Now on round 3 the pattern does change. we have 2 stitches in brown, 4 in cream and 2 stitches in brown. And we go again, 2 stitches in brown, 4 in cream, 2 in brown. So we got all together, we'll have 4 brown, 4 cream, 4 brown, 4 cream. So we don't need to twist the yarn at the back of the work anymore on this round, because 4 stitches, having a float across the back of 4 stitches is absolutely fine. So we're just going to make sure that we feed the cream in from underneath when we swap from colour to colour. And so when you're knitting those 4 stitches of each colour, you can simply then just knit the 4 stitches in brown, drop the brown, pick up the cream, bringing it underneath the brown as we have done on the other rounds, and then knit 4 in the cream, drop the cream, pick up the brown feeds over the top of the cream, and that's how you keep your fairisle knitting nice and neat. I do have something that I can show you just to try and explain. Can't really do it with this hat because there isn't a lot of rows or rounds of the fairisle knitting, but if we just look at this, which is really gorgeous, same thing, we're working in 2 colours of yarn, but if you look on the reverse, because I was feeding in the yarn in exactly the same way, the cream yarn was fed in from the bottom and the green yarn on this one was fed in from the top. Can you see on the reverse that you can almost see the fairisle patterning because you're feeding in the yarn in exactly the same way on every round? If you mix it up, you don't get this lovely effect on the back, and it doesn't your stitches are not as neat on the front. You won't get as neat a pattern. But that's how your fairisle can look on the back if you do it in this way. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And then for rounds 5 and 6, we are switching things around because we've got 6 stitches all together in the cream yarn and only 2 in the brown. So just do as you did on rounds 1 and 2, where you trap we're going to trap the brown yarn into the 4th stitch on round 5 and maybe trap it into the 2nd stitch on round 6, but you just do it in exactly the same way as you did on rounds 1 and 2. So I hope that's given you enough information so that you can try knitting with 2 colours of yarn and make this gorgeous little Christmas pudding hat.